Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for another edition of our Pro Football Hall of Fame Before the Snap series today. We're excited for another super awesome program today featuring, I'll say, probably one of the most unique careers that we've seen so far as part of season 1 or season 2 of Before the Snap. If this is your first time watching us, first off, we want to thank you so much for giving some of your time to view the program today. You're in for a very, very cool program. You're going to learn about different careers, and you've probably learned about those in your classes all throughout high school and college about different jobs you can have in sports. But today, we're going to focus in on one specific job. And if you're interested in it, you're going to be able to learn so much about the career and not only what our special guest does today on a day-to-day basis, but how she got there and different tips and tricks to make sure you set yourself up for that career you want in the sports field. If you tuned with us before, again, thank you so much. You guys are in for another excellent program. My name is Jake Ray, and I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where it's our mission to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence together. The values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. Not only do they make our Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame football players, Hall of Fame administrators, Hall of Fame owners, they make them Hall of Fame people as well. Those values not only make great football players great, they make people great as well. They can make you a great father, great son, brother, sister, daughter, and truly a great employee in whatever organization that you work in. So it's going to be exciting today to see how these values kind of continue to pop up in everything that we talk about today, even though we're talking about careers in and around the NFL. Before we do get started today, I do have some thank yous I want to pass out. First off, to our special guest today, Jackie Goodwin of the Tennessee Titans. Thank you so much for being a part of the program today. We know that football isn't just a 18-week job throughout the NFL season. It is a true full-year job, working, I would say, 99% of the year. There may be a day or two you get off, but it is truly a job that is 365 days a year. So thank you for taking time out of your day-to-day, and truly thank you for everything you do for the game of football and indirectly do for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers, our administrators, educators, professors, anybody that took the time to either show this program in their classroom or share it out to their students. We're super excited to just be a small part of your students' learning experience this year. And then lastly, the students. As always, program doesn't happen without your involvement. As we always say, Nathan and I, we love asking questions. We've got some good ones, but nobody wants to hear us ask these questions. We want to hear from you. Students, this is the time for you to interact and network and learn a little bit about what it takes to work in not only the NFL, but sports in general. So as always, students, if you're watching us on our live stream on YouTube today, put down your name, the college you go to, the school you go to, and then ask your questions. As always, Nathan's out in our Gold Jacket Lounge watching all those. And our challenge to you today is be first. We don't want to wait till halfway through to see that first question, that first comment. We want you to be first. So strive to be the first person that asks that question today. Open the door, open the conversation, because once you do, everybody else is going to keep submitting their questions. So our challenge out to our viewers today, be the first to ask that question. So today, we are lucky and grateful to be joined by our special guest, Jackie Goodwin. She's in her 6th season with the Tennessee Titans, including her first as the team's Gameday entertainment and community impact manager. She oversees the Tennessee Titans cheerleaders and Blue Crew Drumline, and is responsible for all the marketing efforts, game day logistics, and administrative tasks for both programs. A native of Washington, D.C., she graduated from Duke University in 2015 and was on the Dean's List with a degree in biology and a minor in psychology, which is interesting, and we'll get into why that's kind of an interesting path you took there. During her time at Duke, she worked with the Duke programming for Duke undergraduate basketball operations, including a national championship in 2015. She currently serves as the vice president of special events for the American Marketing Association Nashville, and was named one of the 100 leading women in Nashville in 2018, a very, very prestigious honor. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our special guest today, Ms. Jackie Goodwin. Jackie, welcome to Before the Snap.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks, so I can't wait to get going.
Awesome. Well, first, as always, like we said, we want to thank you for being a part of the program today. And as we start out every program, can you kind of give us at the Hall of Fame, all of our students viewing today, kind of a 10,000 foot view overview on what your day-to-day life looks like with the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I think what's really fun is that every day is completely different, and that's why I love it. Typically, we have our normal 9 to 5, but then all of our cheer and drumline members have full-time jobs outside of this. So a lot of my time is actually spent in the evenings or on the weekends working with our entertainment staff as well. I cover everything from practice logistics to appearance requests to payroll, social media, everything in between, game day logistics. So it's really just kind of what gets thrown at me during the day. But it's a lot of fun, never the same day, 100%. And I just love working with both groups.
And I think it's interesting because, when you think of, a career, you think you're going to be doing one thing, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, rinse and repeat every week. But, just in that short description there, you touched on 5 or 6 different things that you handle with 2 completely different groups all under the same umbrella. So what is that experience like? And why is that a benefit as opposed to a negative, having to do so many different little things with 2 different groups?
Yeah, I think what's really cool is I don't have any dance or drum experience. You don't want to see me do either. I leave it to both of those groups to do that. So it's been really fun to learn a lot. I think it's really great because I just get to learn and I get to see how I can support them, what they need from me, and how I can make them be more successful in their role. And I honestly think not having that experience, I don't have some pre-existing notion of what it should be or what it shouldn't be. And I get to kind of work with them to develop who we are and what our branding really is.
And I want to kind of dive into that. You talk about not having experience in drumline or cheer and having over to see that. But you go back to your college, majoring in biology, minor in psychology, working for the Tennessee Titans. Does not seem like the correct path when you're in college to getting a career after you graduate. So first question is, how did you end up working in sports? And then we'll kind of dive into kind of how your career path in college might have changed along the way.
Sure. So ever since I was little, I loved animals. I wanted to work with marine life. So growing up, it was always a biology, a science focus, whether that was AP Bio in high school or a biology major in college. So I worked at aquariums in Australia, in DC. I worked at the zoo here in Nashville for an internship over the summer, which really was what brought me here after that and after I graduated, just because it was just an amazing city. And I think that's my biggest tip to everyone is just try everything. I realized after doing these internships and getting this experience that it really wasn't what I wanted to do long term. And that wasn't something I could see myself doing for 20 years. And just as, quite frankly, a fun, exciting activity, I helped out with our basketball team, and that was helping out for the Duke UNC game every year. The Duke students tent, and they live in tents from January to March. And I was helping out with all the logistics, whether that was safety, event planning, having the students get into the game, everything kind of in between. And that, again, was just something I did because I loved that team and I loved that environment and being there and it didn't matter what clique you were in or what group you were in, fraternity, sorority, major, everyone was just so excited to be there and be on that little plot of grass and ready to rally around that team. And then kind of looking when I graduated, I had a job offer in LA and I had a job offer in Durham for account management for an advertising company. And I knew what I wanted. And so I kind of just went for it. I picked a city. It was a big risk. And then I kind of found a job online and was one of 180 some that applied. So it's just funny how that works out and life works out. I still use my bio major in terms of how I think and how I work and my work ethic 100%. But I think what's really cool is that you can, just from an extracurricular activity that you do for fun in college, that can truly shape your career and be the founding part of what you do for a living.
You kind of got into my next question I want to ask. And, we show a video when we do a careers program here, and it's a person who works for the San Francisco 49ers. She majored in English and literature and works in game day entertainment. So we talk about, because you major in something, you're not tied to that career. So how did you, being in biology and psychology, which from right there are 2 totally separate careers in themselves, how did you take things you learned in college from the classroom and be able to apply those now in your job you do with the Titans?
I think the biggest things I learned were, one, work ethic. you'll be in the library working on one problem for a chemistry class or a physics class for hours. It's just how it would go in college for me, at least, because those were not my strong subjects. So I think just having that work ethic, as well as communication, I think a lot of lab work I did in college was really important because you were working with a partner, and it may not be someone I knew before that, and we may not have different communication styles, different ways we work, different schedules. So I think that really taught me a lot about how to work with others, especially ones I don't really know super well.
And then, you get into your career, you've got the experience now. You talk about working there at Duke, preparing for one of the biggest collegiate sports games in the country throughout the entire year. And so that's just one small piece of, the entire sport field itself. How important is it to gain that experience? So we talk about, things in the classroom, and yes, those help you in the long run, but specifically in the sport field, and working in and around sports, I believe it's all about that experience and gaining that hands-on experience to help you become the best employee that you can be. So for those, college students out there who are looking to get into sports, how important is it to gain experience in either the field you want or any field to kind of find that path that you want to go down?
I think it's so valuable to really make sure you're trying everything. And I would say, even with my biology major and my original interest in animal husbandry, I would never have known that wasn't what I wanted to do until I tried it. And even after 3 internships, it was the third one where I was like, I think this isn't something I can do long term. So I think whether there's always ways you can get involved. That's at high school. If you're an athlete, that's amazing. If you're a manager, that's amazing. If you can work with your video team, that's amazing. Same thing with college. I know all of our college teams all had managers that were students, including our basketball team. There are a lot of other ways you can get involved. They always want help. They always want interns, and they're there because they want to help you learn. They could work for a lot of other sports teams, but they're choosing college for a reason, and they want to kind of have that foundation and help foster your growth. So take advantage of that, because they are there for a reason, and they're excited to help you, and they want to help you.
And that's super important, because there are people out there. You're not ever on an island. There's always somebody out there who wants to help you. And, in gaining in any experience, that whether it's sports or not, there's always somebody who's going to be that you're going to meet along the way that's going to help you. And I think you have a very unique perspective, because you kind of altered your path or changed your path to work in sports. And, there's that cliche, you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. So, you talk about knowing your why. How did you find that why, and why did it end up leading you to the Tennessee Titans?
I think growing up, my parents, we had a really close family. I'm the youngest of 4. We were always together. So I always had that kind of team camaraderie. And then from there, it was every sports team. I was a captain in high school of tennis, swimming, everything in between. I played 13 sports in 12 seasons, because I was swimming in the morning, track in the evening. So that's always been a part of me. And I loved leading. I worked with coach the lacrosse team when I was in college at Duke, outside of going to Duke. So I've always had that in me, and I love being able to support others and help them grow. I think that's my favorite thing, is watching the cheerleaders land a new stunt or do some sort of routine, and they just absolutely crush it. It's just the best feeling in the world on game day to see them so excited and so proud of themselves. Same thing with Blue Crew. We just got all this new gear. We have everything super branded this year. Did a kind of a big rebrand for them during the off season, and their excitement, they're excited to represent the brand. They love what they're doing. They're able to really utilize all the items we're giving them and have fun, make a great experience for our fans. So that's just kind of what fuels me. It's just really fun, and they love it. You have those hard days and you have long days, don't get me wrong, like very long days sometimes, but getting to that finish line and seeing where you got and kind of what you accomplished since the beginning of the day it's a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, it almost kind of sounds cliche, but it's those smiles on the faces, all that hard work. You finally take that deep breath when everything's completed and started, and you start to see the smiles, whether it's the people you work with, the fans, and it's like, all right, all that I went through was definitely worth it.
100%.
I want to give a special shout out, Christopher Phillips. We challenge somebody to be first. Christopher was first. And so with that, we're going to throw it out to Nathan Martin, the Youth and Education Coordinator here at the Hall of Fame, who's got some questions from our YouTube chat already today that we have for you for the program.
Yeah, Jake, thank you so much for sending it out here. And Jackie, thanks for being part of the program. And Jake, it was Christopher. Christopher attends Southern Utah University. And Christopher was curious, Jackie, what sort of opportunities do you have, or the Titans have, for somebody that wants to work in pro sports? They're trying to get their foot in the door. What's that entry level internship position that's out there, whether it's in pro sports or you kind of have a background, at least when you were a college student working in college? How do you get your foot in the door, basically, is Christopher's question.
I think a big part of that is networking. So my dad is an executive recruiter. So he always taught me it's worth reaching out. You have nothing to lose. Worst thing that happens is they don't respond, and that's okay. And if you're coming to them, not necessarily looking for a job, but you're coming to build a relationship and make that connection. And that's something you can keep revisiting down the line. And then finally, when they have something that pops up, you're going to be the first person in their head. I think that's really important. You go into a conversation with the focus of building the relationship versus trying to get a job out of them. I think in terms of the Titans, we post all of our jobs, that's seasonal internships as well, on LinkedIn. And so that's a really great place to start.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. You mentioned LinkedIn. Students, we've posted Jackie's LinkedIn bio or her link to her page in the comments. So feel free to connect with her, ask questions after the program. Don't just ask to get a job, be meaningful, actually be looking to have a positive, mutually beneficial, really, relationship created there through networking. Question number 2, this is from Cameron, who attends the University of Tennessee. So right there in the great state of Tennessee, volunteers, right? What do you look for? So you've gotten to hire people. What do you look for when you're trying to hire somebody? And Cameron's interest is actually in social media. So I don't know if you can speak to that. Cameron, go watch. We had Nate Bain from the Titans earlier this year on Before the Snap. He works in social media, but you could at least speak to what you're looking for in a candidate when you're trying to hire somebody.
Sure. So I'm actually in charge of running all of the cheerleaders' social media accounts. So that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well. So I think looking for someone who's really unique. If you're applying, take the time to really cater that resume to that job you're applying to, especially always include a cover letter and make sure that cover letter is really specific, again, for the job you're applying to. I would also try to make yourself really stand out and kind of show, especially with social media, there's so much creative elements to that. You can really kind of put on a show and kind of show who you are as an individual while also aligning with the brand that you're hoping to represent.
Yeah, I think those are 2 great points. We've had other guests mention the importance of include a cover letter, make sure the resume is specific to the job. It's okay to have different resumes based on the experience that you have and the job that you're actually applying for. Read through the job description, figure out which experience that you have is actually going to benefit you in the position that you're applying for. I'm going to go with one more, Jake, and then I'll send it back to you. This is from Jake, who attends the University of New Mexico. And he says, okay, you told us the advice of what you're looking for, but how did you stand out when you applied for jobs? What are the things that you think you did well? If you can put yourself back in their shoes, applying for those internships and entry-level jobs.
So I think at the beginning of the application process, my cover letter, I started off with a bang. It talked about tenting. It talked about staying up all night, working with the basketball programming. It talked about how I was playing that many sports in high school, just kind of showed that I'm willing to push it to the limits, as well as kind of like, oh, that's that girl. We remember that cover letter, that stood out. It was more than just the normal template on Google. Then I would also, honestly, as far as getting into the interview process, I prepped my butt off. You really want to do your homework. Even right now, I'm going to be totally transparent. Like I their social media, what's on their LinkedIn, how can you build that relationship and kind of work with them as and see them more as kind of a human that you're friends with and that you can work with versus just, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm good at. So I think that's really important. And then the last thing is that I wrote a thank you note. I think that's really, really important in the interview process. Even honestly, if they don't respond, just writing that extra thank you note, having that additional contact point can be so important and really stands out to people that you put in that additional effort.
I love how you broke down the entire process from like the beginning where you're doing the cover letter and the resume, and then it's like, okay, now I'm in the interview. How can I stand out here? And then like the capstone, the cherry on top is like, or I'm gonna get out a piece of paper, get a stamp. I'm gonna write a thank you letter and send it to him. Jake's smiling real big because he loves that. That's always a piece of advice that he gives students as well. And with that, I'll send it back to Jake for some more questions.
Awesome. Yes. Huge. Actually, we were here in the office this morning. Now it was more around Christmas cards, but we were talking about the same idea. How important, who should we send them to? How should we send them? And it might seem like something that's silly and little, but like you said, Jackie, those go a long way. To be honest, I have a drawer in my desk drawer. I have a stack of thank you notes that people have sent me, whether it be from partners we worked with, interns we've had, because those mean a little bit to me. So I think exactly what you're saying there is perfect. Looking at your job, very unique, kind of niche part of sports. But like you said, you have very, very long work days. Specifically, I assume a lot of those take place on Sundays, maybe some Mondays and Thursdays scattered throughout the year. So what does a typical game day look like for you? What's the arrival time? What's
Sure.
the show time? I'm sure there's run-throughs that you go through. So what does the typical game day look like for you?
So for a noon game here in Nashville, I'll get to the stadium around 6:30 in the morning. That includes checking our catering menu, making sure all of our food is there. That's giving our security escort the golf cart to help the cheerleaders get from the parking lot into our locker room. That's making sure everyone's checked in and everyone's able to get in the locker room on time. Then by 8 a.m., we're out on the field doing our field rehearsal. That is probably 15 to 30 minutes of making sure we have our formations in line. We know what we're doing. If there's a rain plan, how are we adjusting? Because Tennessee, we do have an outdoor stadium. So it's a lot of fun, but you have to be ready to take in all the elements and what it'll bring at any point during the game. Making sure with our Drumline, we have wireless mics that are so awesome, making sure we have that mic check ready to go. And then by 10:20, everyone has been deployed into various parts of the stadium. And that's at our tailgates, that's at various ticket events, that's maybe with our community tailgate as well. Our Drumline is playing for our guests and our visitors. So just trying to really bring in that fan experience. I think what's really important that I would try to always emphasize is that we're one of the few items that you can't have and you don't experience when you're not in the stadium itself. So that's something, well, yes, you can be really comfortable on your couch at home. The entertainment side is what we have as that extra element of why you want to be in the stadium and why you want to buy that ticket. So I think that's always really important. And we try to keep that in mind. By kickoff, we are out on the field. Our Drumline is either up on the stage or they come on the field for the game day performances. Cheerleaders have a game day performance in between the first and second quarter. And then it's really just trying to manage and making sure everyone's successful, whether that's security, whether that's more water, whether that's a uniform change because the weather isn't, working for us today. So it's really kind of playing everything by ear. We work with our production group as well for all the promotions we do. So we have cheerleaders who assist with bringing season ticket members for the promotions, making sure all that's going smoothly. So it's a lot of just talking on a headset, working through problems and troubleshooting, and then making sure everyone's feeling okay and that everyone's having a good game day.
So that's obviously what a home game looks like. 8 or 9 times a year, you're somewhere else having to do the same job in an unfamiliar location in a stadium that you don't know how to get around. So how does the experience differ at an away game? Obviously, you kind of assume that it's going to be a little less presence than you would have at a home game. But do you run into more issues, less issues? How is the experience different when you go somewhere else to do your job?
Sure. So when we went to London a few years ago, it was like you said, a completely different experience. That was weeks of prep work. That's working with various entertainment companies that are on site. That's working with NFL London as well, making sure that we're representing them where they would like us to be. That's transportation. Everyone's in a hotel room. I mean, you're traveling from Nashville to London. If you forget a uniform piece, that's not getting there by game day. So a lot of thinking ahead and also a lot of being really flexible and ready to pivot. So I think that was really important for us. But what a cool experience. I swear that's probably one of my favorite moments, was being able to go and have that week in London and meet all these fans, because they love football. They're coming into the Titans bar and they have like Patriot stuff on or this or that team. And they just are so excited to be there. And like, I used to live in Chicago, and they're really excited, and they just loved the environment, which was really, really cool.
Well, that leads me right into my next question. One of the benefits in working in sports is not only the networking and the getting to see so many different pieces of how an NFL team is run, but it's those special moments that I always like to say that there's been things I've done. I'm sure there are things that you have been a part of that people would pay a large sum of money to be able to get to do. So, kind of taking back the job responsibilities and the day-to-day work. You mentioned London being a very cool experience. Is there anything else that stands out as, when you take a step back at the end of your career, you'll go, that was pretty cool. I got to be a part of that moment. Has there been any moments for you like that?
I think the NFL draft was just like the most amazing event I have seen. And I'm so thankful to have been a part of, with the Titans when it was in Nashville. I mean, that was a record-setting crowd. There were so many activations all over the city. People were just falling in love with the city the way I did a few years ago. And it was just so cool to see. I mean, we talked about it. I think I worked like almost 65 hours in that 3-day period. And it was so much fun. Like I wanted to keep going and never stop. So that was such a great experience. And it was just made me really, really proud to work for the Titans as well as be a part of the NFL.
I can speak for all those fans as well. Love Nashville. One of my favorite cities to go to. And I was in Nashville right before the draft, and you could tell that the excitement was in the city for sure. And then to see it on TV, Broadway filled up with hundreds of thousands of people watching the draft was very cool to see on TV, which I'm sure it was 100 times cooler to see it actually there in person. We talked at the beginning about how unique the game is and those values that the game of football can teach that make you a better person, a better player, whatever it might be. Being involved in the game, we talked about finally seeing the smiles on the faces of fans, the people you work with that make the job worth it. But if you had to take a step back and look at the game as a whole, we're unapologetically football here at the Hall of Fame. Sure. Same thing for the Titans. We know that there's all these values you can learn from so many different things, but from the game of football itself, throughout your experience, what is one thing or two things that you've seen that the game of football can teach those about their lives that they can apply to their life, in the boardroom, in the classroom, or any other experience that they might have?
I think the ability to break things down. So you have your long-term goal every year. You want to win that Super Bowl, but there are a lot of steps that need to happen between training camp and that Super Bowl game. So it's the short-term goals and the long-term goals, and making sure you're seeing both. And those short-term goals are going to get you to where you want to be in a few months or a year.
Yeah, and that's one of the very important ones, being able to break things down fundamentally and know that, yes, that's the end goal. It's to get to the Super Bowl, have the confetti rain down, celebrate, but there's so many different things and things that you can succeed at on the way to lead to that final part. Part of our mission, I mentioned at the beginning, is to honor the heroes of the game, which not only are our Hall of Famers, the legends, but everybody that has an impact on the game of football, including yourself. Without you here, there's nobody to do your job, which impacts 10 people, which impacts 10 more people. So we have to honor that. And then part of our job is to preserve the history. And what better way to preserve the history than to be a museum? So what I'm going to do right now is throw it out to Nathan Martin, who's up from the Gold Jacket Lounge out in our museum in front of an artifact that's not related directly to the Titans, but I have a feeling he's going to spin it in a way that we're going to get a pretty cool answer. So I'm going to throw it out to Nathan, who's live in our museum.
Awesome, Jake. Thank you so much for sending it out here. I am in the Pro Football Today gallery, where we take the artifacts that literally happened just this week. I'm going to go off script actually and show you guys something, because I didn't even know it was out here until 45 minutes ago. But let me tell you why I'm standing in front of this Joe Burrow jersey, okay? The Cincinnati Bengals has nothing to do with Jackie and the Titans, but they rebranded this year. They got a new jersey, some new stripes, as it says here. But if we walk through this Pro Football Today gallery, okay, I can show you, because back in 2018, the Tennessee Titans went through a similar rebrand. And sometimes teams, it's just time for a new jersey. They change cities. whatever it may be. So we got a Derrick Henry jersey. This is the jersey he was wearing when he busted off that 99-yard run against the Jaguars in 2018. If my research serves me correct, Jackie, you were the cheer liaison and community research coordinator during that time, and the franchise undertook the rebrand. So I'm curious, let me show you one more thing before you answer the question, though. I'm curious how that rebrand impacted you, but if we keep going through here, you can see all kinds of cool stuff here in Pro Football Today. I'm walking backwards. Hopefully I don't fall down here on selfie mode, because these are the artifacts I didn't even know were in here until 45 minutes ago. This is a jersey from Derrick Henry from last year when he went over 2,000 yards, but this is really cool. And this will show you guys what the Pro Football Hall of Fame is like. This right here is the quarter zip that Coach Mike Vrabel was wearing on Sunday. Like, he was wearing it on November 14th. Here it is, November 19th. He was wearing this. Salute the service. We like to get something out in the museum for that. But really cool. Just that's one way that we preserve the history here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Something happens, a historic moment, a milestone, a record, whatever. It ends up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame a lot of times within a couple of days. But back to my question, Jackie, the rebrand, how did that impact your job, and what was that like with the position that you had in that period of time?
Sure. So while our football team rebranded, we also rebranded our cheerleading team and then our drumline team this past few seasons. So with the cheerleading team, that was everything from bringing in both kind of, for high schoolers, it would be like having your pom squad and your cheer squad merge into one. So we have flyers, we have bases, we have dancers now. That was a uniform rebrand, like how you can see Derrick Henry's jersey back there. There's the sword on the shoulder. We have that on our cheerleading jersey now, as our cheerleading jersey uniform as well, to really reflect that. Again, the emphasis of the light blue and the navy is really important, making sure that everything's on brand, but also kind of unique to, again, a cheerleading uniform is going to be a little different than a football uniform. It's funny how it kind of lined up, where once our football team rebranded, we were given the opportunity to really look at what our team was and how we could really emphasize and make a whole new game day experience for our fans and see how we could really elevate that experience for them.
Yeah, that probably had to be a really neat experience to be a part of, a neat opportunity for your career to take a part of that as well. So the Titans are very well represented in the Pro Football Today gallery, as you guys can see. But I'm going to send it back to Jake, and then I'm going to jump back to the Gold Jacket Lounge, because I know we've got a lot of student questions that we need to get to before the end of the program.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, thanks for giving a look in there. And it helps when you have Derrick Henry at running back, breaking all these records. A lot of artifacts come through here with that 22 and Henry on the back of the jersey. Talk about that idea of a rebrand. It's part of, growing as an employee. Not everybody gets to be a part of the rebrand. And there's other folks in other industries, other organizations that do other things. When they go through a rebrand or something new comes in, or a new leader comes to a new leadership position, things are going to change. And that's not a bad thing. But it taking the opportunity to advance yourself and learn more is something huge, like the idea of going through a rebrand. That's just one small example. So how important is it to take advantage of these opportunities and not only grow the organization, but grow yourself as an employee, gaining more and more experience within your career?
Sure. I think change is really hard. But it's the only constant we really know in life, is that things are constantly changing. And whether that's graduating from high school and going to college, you're with a whole new group of people, you may be in a whole different state, different country. So just accepting that and being flexible. I know I've tried to control everything, and that was my big struggle. I'm still working to improve it. So just working on trusting yourself and knowing that you're making the best decision for yourself at this time with the information that you have. People may not agree with it, people may not like it, but knowing that you're doing something that you know is best for you and long-term, is the right move. You just need to be patient and be flexible. Again, I try to control everything. It's a lot of things at play on game day, and you just learn quickly that you can't, and you got to trust the people that you're working with, that they're going to just do a great job. And if something pops up, then you'll all work together to solve it. But I think just being really flexible and being open and having that communication. If there's something that's not clear to you, if there's questions that you have, ask them. People, again, they want to communicate, they want to talk to you. I was my biggest thing in college. I never talked to my professors, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets. I wish I had built those relationships with them. And I think I genuinely would have enjoyed my bio classes a lot more if I had.
I think that's too, because all of that kind of falls into the bucket of trust. You got to trust the people you work with, trust that even if you've got to step back and let other people take on some responsibilities, that they're going to be able to get the job done just as good, if not better, than you were able to. And that's a great relationship to the game of football itself. You got 11 people in the huddle. The left tackle, the Taylor Lewan's got to trust the right tackle that they're going to get their job done to protect Tannehill as the quarterback. And it's all related, all the same premise, whether you work in the business side or the actual game itself. And, learning all these different things can lead to success within your job. But, example for you, being named, I'm going to make sure I get this right, one of the 100 leading women in Nashville. How important was that to you? And how important was it to highlight women in sports specifically?
That was such a big honor for me. I think just starting off, originally when I started working for the Titans, I was working part-time. And to make sure I had a stable income, I was also working full-time as a project manager for a software development company. So that was working a full-time job plus working for the Titans 20 to 30 hours a week. And if that was working all day Sunday, I would then be in the office working with our developers on Monday. So that was 2 years of just really working, just tired, but working my butt off. And it's just a lot of things like that, where looking at it at the time, I was tired, but I was doing well. And having the Titans give me that opportunity to then come on full time, because I'd proved myself and kind of shown what I could do, really meant a lot to me. And then it just kind of kept building, which is really, really cool. I think there's like a misconception sometimes that to move up in sports, you have to jump around. I don't think that's true at all. The Titans have really let me go from part-time to an assistant to a coordinator to a manager. And this honor of being one of the leading women in Nashville was just a really, really cool thing to see, that it's not only internally do the Titans support me, but externally people are noticing as well. And I think a lot of that does come down to networking again. I work at that American Marketing Association, and I've had a lot of opportunities to communicate with others and get to know others and teach people about what I do and learn what they do as well. So it's been a cool experience.
Yeah, I think that obviously is a great honor. And, at the end of the day, though, it is a great honor, but, you fall back, it's because of the people you work with, because of everybody who's given you that opportunity, like you mentioned. We asked for student questions. Students definitely responded. I'm going to throw it out to Nathan. This might be the last time you hear from me. We've got so many great student questions. So I'm going to throw it out to Nathan, who's got a good couple questions from some of the students tuning in today.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. And there are a lot of questions. So students, thank you so much for submitting your questions. Thank you for your patience while we sort through your questions to figure out which ones we can get on the air. Going to Courtney from St. Louis University. She said, Jackie, what is the most useful piece of advice you were given when you were pursuing a career in football?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would think number one piece of advice, I think, is being flexible and being willing to adapt. Again, I don't have a cheer background. I don't have a dance background. I don't have a drum background, but I showed them what I could do and how I could help them and how I could support them and what I was capable of. So being flexible, willing to try that. I originally came on with our cheerleading program. They allowed me to also work with our Drumline program, and it was just figuring it out. So I think that flexibility and that openness and I'll try it, I think is so, so important. And that's the same thing with getting your foot in the door. I know y'all have mentioned on previous videos that talking about the ticket department and how that's a great way to get in and kind of meet people, connect. Just having that experience is so important. So you don't know what that'll entail, but why not try it? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to learn either way, if you love it or if you want to make a change.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to this next question we have from Batista, who attends the University of Central Florida. We're all over the country today. When did you realize that sports was like a legitimate career path that you're like, oh, dang, like maybe I should do this, go into the sports? You had the Duke experience, but the bio major, like when was that light bulb moment for you?
Duke had a conference where we were able to hear from various individuals in the arts, and that included creative. And that was the first time I heard from someone from marketing from the WNBA. And I never thought about that in terms of when I think of sports, I always thought of operations or being the athlete or being the coach or the assistant coach. I didn't necessarily take into account all the other avenues that you can work with. My sister, for example, works for a PR company, but she does PR for one of the major sponsors of the Super Bowl. So it's a very, again, we have completely different jobs, completely different companies, but we have that overlap. And so there are so many different avenues that you may not realize. Look at sponsors, who's really involved with the sport you love. Look at the jobs that you see online. Our Titans, I love it. On our front office page, you can see every job title, who that is. And if you click on our bios, you can read kind of what we've talked about, all of my experience or all of this person's experience. So you can kind of see where they've come from and what experience they have. And you can also see the jobs that are available and jobs that will typically pop up.
I love the point you made there, because I don't know if I've ever heard someone highlight this about take a look at the other businesses that are like major sponsors in the sports world, because you might be working for Coca-Cola, Nissan, whatever, Pepsi's Super Bowl. I shouldn't have said Coca-Cola. My bad. Whoever the company is, but you might be working in sports basically, but you're working for this normal business. I put in air quotes. So I love that advice. I hope that our students caught that and will think about that as well. Next question is from Dylan. Very general question. What type of careers he's like, I'm a business major. Where do I go? How do I get into sports? I'm not marketing. I'm not, something very specific, graphic design. I'm business. What advice would you have for them?
So I was in the same boat. Duke didn't have a sports marketing major. Or I think the closest thing we had was economics or public policy. So I think, again, is working to have that experience, whether that's an internship, working with a team at your school, during the pandemic, I was like, you know what, I'm going to work to improve myself. So I took courses online on Coursera. I took a sports marketing class from Northwestern. I've taken a social media class to see how I could improve our SEO and things like that. So kind of what stands out to a viewer, I think you can always work to improve, and you can list those items. I list that on my resume. It's like, hey, I graduated from Duke, but here are the additional classes I've taken as well. That's on my LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure too. So I think there always are ways you can leverage and kind of work to educate yourself. Even I read Coach K's book, Leading with the Heart, just things like that kind of put you in the right mindset of what you're hoping to achieve. Go find whoever you want to be and learn from them. And if it's a book or if it's research or it's an interview they have, see what they do, see how they think, and then try to emulate that.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that, because you touched on it earlier, for Dylan, who attends Boston University, like business related field, go to the Titans website, read the titles, be like, that sounds like a really interesting job, and then figure out how you can connect and reach out to them on LinkedIn. The worst case that's going to happen is they don't respond. And if you send out enough of those, you're going to find out that in the sports world, people are willing to try to help you out, as long as you're being genuine and not just saying, hey, can you hire me? Next question. This is hopefully a more fun one. And I know Jake talked about like your favorite memory working for the Titans, but this can probably be spun a different way. Haley from Illinois Wesleyan University says, what's the favorite part of your job day to day working with the Titans?
I think game day. It's the most stressful day of my life every Sunday, but it's also so cool. Like there is, especially after coming out of the pandemic and trying to figure everything out, and we weren't able to have a full capacity stadium, you never take it for granted anymore. You always are like, wow, I'm so lucky to be here and so lucky to have this camaraderie and have this team and have my coworkers who I had to see on Zoom for a year straight. Like there's so many things like that I just learned not to take for granted. And game day is one of them, because again, that day stresses me out. Like from 6:30 to 4 p.m., I'm really stressed out. But I also have learned to really take it in and learn to enjoy it, because you don't know if it's going to be something that you get to experience the next week. So I love it. It's so fun. The fans love it. And it's great because we're playing so well and everything's working so well right now. And you can feel it in the stadium. We just had 2 games back to back where we set capacity records in our stadium, which is just so cool because you can feel Nashville really building and growing around this team, which is just, I love it.
Is there a difference? This came to my mind. So this is my own question. Is there a difference for a primetime game, like in what you're doing? Like, or is it kind of like same old, it's just different kickoff time?
It's similar. There are additional elements 100%. And that's everything from more camera crews to more pregame appearances. You're just pulled a lot more directions maybe than a normal game would be. And then it's again, a different element of we're in an outdoor stadium. So we have a Thursday night game on, I believe, December 23rd. So that's going to be cold. So just again, pivoting and making sure like our drummers, their hands need to be warm. So if that's hand warmers, that's gloves, thinking those things through is really important as well, which honestly, you wouldn't necessarily think of from a fan experience, but that's what I'm thinking is how can I make them successful? And that's going to be hand warmers.
Yeah, definitely need hand warmers on December 23rd, outdoor stadium. Question from Rayanne from Boston University. They're a freshman in college, freshman in business. Like, mind is swirling, probably heard all this about your life and your career and how you got to where you're at. Like, how do I get involved? That's basically the question. I'm a freshman. I don't want to wait till I'm a senior and it's too late. Like, how can I get involved now as a freshman?
I love that. That's really exciting. And I'm excited for you because you have like so much ahead of you. So get excited. College is amazing. I think just reaching out, whether that's someone in the athletic department, whether that's a coach you're interested in working with. I know our group that I worked with for Duke men basketball was technically under the student government. So figuring out those roles and what you hope to do and what you're looking for, and just reach out and just see what they have available. Again, they're always looking for help. I promise you, the athletic department always wants help. They're never going to turn down help. So just ask, just take that email, put something nice together, include your resume, and just say, hey, I would love to be a part of this. What can I do to get started?
Yeah, that's amazing advice. And you're right. College athletic departments are never going to turn around free volunteer help from the students. This is from Shang, a student at Rutgers University. Personal question for you. What values are the most important to you in your life?
That's a good one. I think loyalty is a big one for me, as well as trust. So I always talk about this. People say I'm loyal to a fault. And I think that's so important when you're working in a team or a department, is that you can trust each other and that you have each other's backs. I think that just time and time again, that's kind of how I was raised. Like my 3 siblings and I, we were a unit. Everything we did as a team. So I just think moving up and kind of now managing 2 different teams, it's made it really important for me to understand that I can trust people as well as, and I know they're going to do the right thing, and that we're all kind of on the same page and we're ready to represent the brand in the same way. Yeah,
loyalty is important. It's not just a sports, term. I mean, you basically just outlined how it's a life term. So that's really cool that's a value that's important to you. This is more of a work-related question. This is from Zach, University of Nebraska. What's your job like in the off season? We've talked a lot about game day. You talked a little bit about the draft experience that you had when Nashville hosted the draft, but generally speaking, I mean, what are you doing in the middle of June?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Ideally, we are playing football until February. So from there, our off season, we really don't have one. So, I mean, from in the March kind of world, I'm working through uniform designs and working through new drums, working with our managers there to see how what we need to do in the off season, what we need to order, and what needs to be repaired. And then as far as auditions, we begin cheerleading auditions in April. And then the team has decided mid-April, May, and then they're practicing throughout the summer 3 or 4 times a week. Same thing with our Drumline. We have auditions in the summer and then they're practicing multiple times a week. It takes so much more time than people realize to get ready for that game day. Even for the cheerleaders, for one routine, we probably have 4 or 5 3-hour practices for that 1 90-second routine. So we need to start in the spring to make sure that we're ready to go for all of our home games in the season.
Yeah, I think you did a great job there outlining and explaining to everybody that, hey, I don't just work during the football season. Last question for me, and I'll send it back to Jake because he'll be able to wrap things up for us. This is from Brian, student at Grand Valley University or Grand Valley State University. What advice would you offer? So we had the freshman end. Brian's a senior at Grand Valley State University. Someone that's getting ready to graduate, looking to get their foot in the door. What's that piece of advice for that college senior that's getting ready to graduate?
I would really utilize your career center at your school. They want to help you succeed. They'll help you build your resume. They'll help you build cover letters. They should have resources and alumni connections that you may not be aware of, which I think could be really helpful. And again, networking, reaching out to people who you're interested in getting to know, not going and asking, hey, I need a job, but just trying to build that relationship and that connection, I think is really important and was a big part of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, love it. Jackie, thank you so much for being a part of the program. Thank you for answering all these students' questions. That's all for me. I'm going to send it to Jake. He'll wrap things up. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Yes, a couple more questions to wrap up today, and then we'll end another great session here of our Before the Snap program. But question here, kind of looking, we talked a lot about the cheer side there. Kind of focus on the band side. NFL not really known for the band or the pep bands. You look at college football, that's where you really see that band being such a prevalent feature of a lot of college football teams. So how do you, as somebody who oversees that, try to amplify the band's presence, whether it be in the community or on a certain game day?
Sure. So I think you're totally right, where it may not be something you immediately think of. However, when you think of Nashville and Music City, that's what it is, right? So I'm going to tell you right now, these drummers, they're phenomenal. Each one of them is absolutely amazing. A lot of them are band teachers at school. Some of them are professional performers. They are unbelievable and so good at what they do. And I'm like very lucky that I'm able to work with them. So I think that was a big part of our branding, is that this is Music City. We need to bring that to our game day experience. And that was kind of where that really started. So it's been a really great experience. We just did a whole rebrand with them as well, making sure that whether it's the hand warmers when they're cold, or it's their new drums, their drum heads now, all of their logos on it. We have a poster for them. So we're able to kind of give that physical item out to people so they know that we're here. Their website, they have albums the same way the cheerleaders do after every game day. They have an open audition every year. So it's really trying to elevate that game day experience for them. And I think in turn, it just it makes everything work. And we kind of just all work together and kind of made a really great environment for both our employees and our performers, but also for our fans as well.
I think that's a good point you make there, kind of embracing what the city is known for, and especially somebody who works in the community. And this is, Nathan had one of those questions that pop up, and this is kind of one, in just answering there, how do you embrace the idea of Nashville being Music City? You look at Pittsburgh, the Steel City, the Midwest hard workers. You look at Green Bay, you're thinking snow and Lambeau. How do you embrace, Nashville being the home of country music, Music City itself, and then apply that, to your job and the people in the two different kind of pockets you oversee?
Sure. I think a big part of that is our drumline. Our game day experience it's a lot of, whether it's the national anthem, it's a halftime musical act, the 12th Titan. There's so many different varieties to really bring in and kind of hone in on what our city is known for. I think the draft was such a great part of that as well. We had phenomenal artists that were just so excited to be there, and everyone wanted to see them and they wanted to be a part of it. I'm pretty sure there were like 3 or 4 stages throughout the day where you had different musical acts. It was like a CMA fest for all intensive purposes, but with a football focus. So that was really, really great as well. And I think with our performers, there's a lot of music videos, there's a lot of gigs here, a lot of performances, a lot of concerts. So embracing that and bringing in those professionals for the dance side has been so great as well, and really elevated our game day entertainment.
Like one of the videos I saw, fancy like Walker Hayes was such a phenomenal, took over the internet. And one of those videos was with the Titans in the stadium with the folks that you work with. So I like that idea. It's, it's not so much, trying to push it away and make it your own thing, but it's like, hey, we know what's working. We're going to embrace what we're known for. And I think that's super cool. Really shows how you truly impact and involve the entire community as a whole. Last question today. And if you've seen the program before, if you're a viewer, Jack, you said you watched some of these before, so I have a good idea that you know what's coming here. So many great tips, so many great ideas for that next generation coming in to the workforce. But if you had to leave everybody today with one idea, one tip, one trick, one piece of information, what do you want them to walk away from with today?
I think being open and being flexible is just so important in life, as well as your career. I really think being able to accept change and embrace change and be open to that change and communicating with that change, it'll really help you in life. Whether that's a new job, a new school, a new city, just dive in and go at it 100%. It's going to be so much more fun if you just embrace it, versus trying to push back and hold back against it. So just have fun with it and you'll learn, and there's nothing you should regret because every experience you have, you learn from. So embrace that change, be flexible, and you're going to be great.
Awesome. And with that, we're going to wrap up this latest installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series today, featuring Ms. Jackie Goodwin. Jackie, again, thank you so much for being a part of the program today, taking time out of your day. I hope the students walked away with something. I know there's things I learned. I'm sure there are things Nathan learned as well, but the goal, hopefully those students walked away with something today. So thank you so much for being a part of the program today.
This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
For all of our viewers out today, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you're able to tune in for the programming we have here coming the rest of the school year, as well as the rest here as we wind down 2021. All of the people who are still watching our live stream today, hit that subscribe, hit that notification reminder on the Pro Football Hall of Fame's YouTube channel to stay up to date with all the great things we got coming out with, whether it's one of our youth education programs, the Heart of a Hall of Famer, connected by Extreme Networks. We just had Houston Oiler legend / Tennessee Titan, Robert Brazil this week. You can go out, take a look at that. We've got a bunch of podcasts coming out. The Mission, hosted by our great teammate here, Jameer Howerton, a podcast with Hall of Famers, media members, authors, you name it. They're sitting down with them to talk it, and you'll be able to see the videos of that as well. Also, if you want to learn more about Before the Snap, shoot us an email, education@profootballhof.com. We'll add you to a list, so every time we roll out new programming, you'll be one of the first students in the country to know that program's coming out. We've got 2 more programs the rest of 2021. December 3rd is our next one. We're taking next week off. Enjoy the time with your family around Thanksgiving. We are going to have Blair Holmes, who works in community relations with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a little hometown flavor in Northeast Ohio. I'm probably making a couple Browns fans mad when I say that. But they're pretty close. So we're looking forward to that interview with her. And as I said at the beginning, the game of football, it's not an 18-week job. It's a 365-day working full-time all year to make the game what it is today. So Jackie, again, thank you so much for being a part of the program today, everything you do for the game of football and everything that indirectly impacts us here at the Hall of Fame. So from myself, from Nathan, all of our staff here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, everybody who watched today, thank you so much. And we hope to see you here in a couple weeks for our next installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. See you.